The human named Daniel never planned to be close to royalty. He was only a maintenance worker on the massive starship that carried both humans and alien dignitaries through the dark stretch of space. His job was simple: fix broken panels, check power conduits, and stay out of trouble. But fate has a strange way of turning an ordinary man into the center of attention. On that day, the ship had docked with the alien flagship. It was a grand vessel belonging to the Zyari Empire, and their queen herself had boarded for a diplomatic meeting. Daniel was not supposed to be anywhere near the throne chamber, yet, by chance, he was ordered to repair a flickering power node in the corridor leading to the royal hall. He grumbled under his breath, holding his toolkit, unaware that his life was about to change forever. The alien guards were tall, with shining armor and sharp eyes. They eyed him with suspicion, but allowed him through. For them, he was just a human technician, harmless and small compared to their massive frames. The air felt heavy as Daniel worked on the glowing node, sparks flashing under his fingers. The corridor was silent, except for the faint hum of energy running through the walls. Then came the sound that froze his blood. A sudden crash, followed by shouts in the alien tongue. The heavy doors to the throne room slammed open, and Daniel's eyes widened as chaos spilled out. Several cloaked figures rushed forward, weapons drawn. Their target was clear: the alien queen. Her long tail, covered in delicate silver scales, swept behind her as she stumbled, her guards clashing with the assassins. Daniel's heart hammered. He knew he should run. He was only human, and these were alien matters far beyond him. But as the queen turned, one of the assassins lunged low, aiming straight for her tail. In Zyari culture, the tail was sacred. Not only a part of the body but a symbol of royal bloodline. To harm it was to destroy her honor and perhaps her rule. Without thinking, Daniel dropped his tools and moved. His body acted faster than his mind. He threw himself forward, arms wide, and shielded the queen's tail with his own body. The assassin's blade struck, glancing off Daniel's shoulder. He cried out in pain but did not move away. The queen's eyes widened, glowing like twin suns. She had never seen such a reckless act from a human. Guards swarmed in, cutting down the attackers. The clash of steel and alien weapons rang through the hall. Daniel lay on the floor, his arm bleeding, his chest heaving. He half expected to be crushed by the guards for daring to touch the queen. But instead, he felt a soft, heavy presence, the queen's tail curling protectively around him. The chamber grew silent as the last assassin fell. The alien guards turned their sharp eyes toward Daniel. Every single one of them expected the queen to demand his execution. After all, no outsider was allowed to even brush against her tail, let alone shield it with their body. The air grew colder, breaths held. Waiting for her command, Daniel forced himself to sit up. His heart pounded. He wanted to explain, to say it was an accident. But his voice caught in his throat as he met the queen's gaze. She stood tall, her silver and violet crown gleaming under the lights. Her long, slender figure radiated authority, but her expression was unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm, yet commanding. "Do not harm him." The words stunned everyone in the room. The guards looked at one another, confused. Never in their history had a queen spared someone who touched her sacred tail. Daniel blinked, breathing hard. I didn't mean," he began, but the queen silenced him with a gesture. Her luminous eyes lingered on him, studying every detail of his human form. It was as if she saw something in him that no one else could. The silence stretched until finally she added, "This human stays with me." Gasps rippled through the chamber. The guards stiffened. Some even looked horrified. The queen had not only spared him, she had claimed him. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had only wanted to fix a broken power node. Now he was standing at the center of alien politics. His wound stung. But the real weight was the queen's gaze, sharp, unyielding, and filled with an emotion he could not understand. As more guards moved to escort him, the queen raised her hand again. "No," she said firmly. "He walks beside me." Daniel's mind raced. Why him? Why would an alien queen, surrounded by elite warriors, single out a clumsy human technician? He swallowed hard, his throat dry. The queen's tail brushed lightly against him. Not in anger, but almost like a shield. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized he was not free. He had stepped into danger by instinct, but now he was caught in something far greater. The hall filled with whispers as the queen turned, her gaze never leaving him, and in that moment, Daniel knew one thing: whatever had just happened, the alien queen would not let him out of her sight again. Daniel could not believe what had happened. One moment he was patching up wires. The next he was standing inside the alien throne chamber, with every eye on him. The guards had cleared the room of the fallen assassins, and the queen had taken her seat once more, but she did not release him instead. Her glowing eyes followed him like a predator studying prey. He tried to step back, thinking maybe he would be dismissed, but before he could move, the queen spoke again. "You will stay," she said. Her voice echoed with power, and though her words were simple, they carried a weight that pressed into Daniel's chest. The guards hesitated, unsure if they had heard correctly. Daniel raised his hands nervously. "Your Majesty." "I didn't mean," he began, but the queen's tail curled slightly, a sharp reminder that she was not asking for excuses. She was making a choice, a dangerous choice. The alien counselors, tall and elegant with jeweled robes, began to whisper among themselves. "A human?" One hissed, "She dares to keep him close?" Another muttered. Their voices grew louder until one of them stepped forward. "Your Majesty, it is unwise," he said firmly. "No outsider has touched the royal form and lived. This is tradition. This is law." The queen turned her gaze on him, and the counselor froze. Her voice was steady, but it sliced through the chamber like steel. "Law bends to survival, tradition bends to loyalty. This human shielded what no guard could. He will remain." Gasps filled the room again. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had wanted to help, but not like this. The last thing he needed was to become a symbol of broken alien traditions. Yet when he looked at the queen, he saw no hesitation in her eyes. She was serious, deadly serious. Two guards approached him, their expressions unreadable. Instead of dragging him away, they escorted him to a smaller chamber beside the throne room. The chamber was filled with alien scents, incense, polished metals, and faint floral perfumes. Daniel stood awkwardly, wondering if this was the part where they locked him up. But then, to his shock, the queen herself entered. The guards bowed low and closed the doors behind her. She walked with a graceful rhythm, her tail swaying behind her. Her crown shimmered under the soft light. Daniel tried not to stare, but the pressure of her presence made it impossible to look away. "You are not afraid of me," she said finally. Her voice was calm, but her words carried hidden curiosity. Daniel swallowed. "I am very afraid," he admitted. His voice cracked slightly. I just moved." The queen studied him, tilting her head. "Instinct," she murmured. "Your body acted before your mind. That is rare. Many would freeze, many would flee. But you shielded." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck nervously. "It was nothing special," he muttered. "Anyone would have." "No." She cut him off sharply. Her luminous eyes narrowed. "Not anyone, not even my best warriors." She leaned closer, her voice dropping lower. "You risked yourself for me. That is not nothing." The words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. He didn't know if she was praising him or warning him. He wanted to step back, but her tail moved slightly, almost like it was holding him in place. The strange gesture made him feel both trapped and oddly safe. Then she asked a question that shook him. "Do humans value the lives of others so easily?" Daniel hesitated. "Sometimes," he said softly. "Sometimes we just act when someone needs help, even if it's dangerous." He paused, searching for the right words. "I didn't do it because you are a queen. I did it because you are alive." The chamber grew silent. The queen stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, something softened in her eyes. For the first time, her posture eased, her tail lowering slightly. "You are strange," she said finally. "But perhaps useful." Daniel's eyebrows shot up. "Useful?" The queen's lips curved in the faintest shadow of a smile. "You will stay near me until I decide otherwise." Daniel's heart sank. He knew what that meant. He was a prisoner. Even if gilded in the queen's favor, he opened his mouth to argue, but the doors opened again, and the counselors returned. Their eyes glared at him with sharp distrust. "Your Majesty," one of them said carefully, "the people will question this. They will fear this. Then let them fear." The queen replied coldly, "For fear can be reshaped into respect." Daniel felt the weight of her words. She was not just keeping him close out of gratitude. She was making a statement. To her people, to her enemies, to everyone. He was no longer just Daniel the technician. He was the human who shielded the queen's tale, and as she stood beside him, tall and commanding, Daniel realized the truth. The queen had chosen him, and now, whether he liked it or not, he belonged to her world. Daniel's life changed overnight. He was no longer a nameless worker who fixed broken panels and carried tools. Now he was the human who had shielded the alien queen's tale, a living story whispered in every corner of the royal vessel. Yet, for him, it felt less like honor and more like a cage. The queen had ordered that he remain in chambers close to her throne room. The room was elegant beyond anything Daniel had seen before. Polished silver walls with glowing etchings, soft cushions that changed shape to match his body. Strange fruits laid out on crystal trays. But no matter how beautiful it was, Daniel felt the heavy eyes of guards watching him from the corners. Their armor glimmered, their hands always near their weapons. To them he was not a guest. He was a risk. Every morning began with the same routine. 2 guards escorted him to the main hall, where the queen sat in her throne, her tail curled regally at her side, her crown glowing with faint light. Daniel was forced to stand near her, a place where everyone could see him. He felt exposed, like an animal displayed in a cage, the alien. Courtiers whispered, their voices carried disapproval. Some tilted their heads with suspicion, others with open disdain. "Why does the queen keep him?" One murmured, "It is dangerous. It is unclean." Another muttered. Daniel heard every word, and though he pretended not to, the sting grew sharper each day. Yet the queen's attention never wavered. She often turned to him in the middle of political debates, asking him questions about his people. How do humans settle conflict? She once asked. The counselors looked horrified that she would even ask. But Daniel answered in the only way he knew. "We argue, we fight, but sometimes we compromise. It depends on who is stubborn enough to last." The queen tilted her head, her glowing eyes studying him. "Interesting," she said, as if collecting pieces of his mind, and though she said little else, she always returned to him with more questions later. At first Daniel thought it was curiosity, but over time he began to notice something deeper. She trusted him. More than some of her own advisors, she did not let him wander freely, yet she kept him within reach, as if his presence calmed her in ways her warriors could not. Meals were another reminder of his strange position. Alien food was placed before him, colorful, steaming, and sometimes wriggling. He forced himself to eat it while the queen observed. Her tail curled in amusement whenever he struggled. Once she even leaned forward, plucking a piece of glowing fruit with her clawed fingers. She held it out to him, and Daniel hesitated before taking it. The room filled with gasps. The queen had never fed anyone before. His days became a strange mix of routine and tension. He was safe inside the queen's circle, but the looks from others carried daggers. Some guards sneered when they thought he was not watching. Counselors muttered about broken traditions, and even the servants seemed uneasy. Daniel often lay awake at night, staring at the shimmering ceiling, wondering when this strange life would end. Yet, he could not deny the bond forming between them. Every time she spoke his name, it carried a weight, a recognition. She listened when he spoke, Even if he stumbled over words, she asked about Earth, about human families, about why someone would throw themselves in front of a blade for another. Daniel answered honestly, "Sometimes when you care, you don't think, you just protect." The Queen's luminous eyes lingered on him for long moments after such words. Her tail shifted closer, sometimes brushing near his boots like a silent reminder that she had not forgotten his act. But not everyone saw this bond with kindness. Daniel began to feel a quiet hostility brewing. When he walked through the corridors, the whispers followed him. When he passed the training grounds, alien warriors stopped their drills to glare. He was an outsider, and no amount of the Queen's favor could erase that truth. One night, as he sat near the balcony that overlooked the vast stars, a guard stepped close. His voice was low, filled with venom. "Do not think her favor will last, human. Queens change, but enemies remain. Watch yourself." Daniel clenched his fists but said nothing. He knew he could not fight them. Not here, not in their world. Still, his chest burned with the truth. He had never asked for this. He had saved her tail out of instinct, not to be chained to her side like a symbol. And yet, when he returned to the throne room the next day, the Queen's gaze softened slightly as it found him, her tail coiled nearer than usual. As if she sensed the hostility pressing against him, Daniel's heart twisted, torn between frustration and an emotion he could not name. He wanted freedom, but the more time he spent under her watch, the harder it became to imagine walking away. The alien Queen might have claimed him as a protector, a companion, or a symbol, but Daniel began to realize something else. She was not just keeping him close to protect her honor. She was keeping him close because she did not want him to leave, and deep inside, though he would not admit it yet, Daniel felt the same pull. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's presence in the palace became impossible to ignore. To the Queen, he was a symbol of courage, a reminder that someone had shielded her when even her strongest warriors had failed. But to many in the royal court, he was nothing more than a dangerous outsider, a stain upon tradition. The whispers grew louder, counselors spoke behind closed doors, guards muttered in low voices. Servants who once bowed politely now avoided his eyes. Daniel could feel the shift like a storm building in the distance. He did not need to understand the alien language to know that his name was becoming a curse on their tongues. One evening, the Queen summoned her council. Daniel was ordered to stand beside her throne as always. The room glowed with golden light, and the counselors filed in with stiff postures. Their jeweled robes shimmered, but their eyes burned with cold fire. "Majesty," one counselor began, his voice sharp. "We cannot ignore this insult to our traditions. This human remains at your side, and the people grow restless already. There are rumors of weakness, rumors that you place more trust in him than in your own kind." The Queen's luminous eyes narrowed, her tail flicked once, sharp as a blade. "He saved me when none of you could," she replied, her voice calm but deadly. "That is not weakness, that is strength." Another counselor stepped forward, braver than the rest. Strength? Or shame? A queen shielded by a human? A tail touched by alien hands? Our enemies whisper, our allies doubt. If you keep him, you risk rebellion. The chamber filled with tense silence. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to defend himself. But he knew one wrong word could make things worse. He stayed. Still, his hands clenched at his sides. The Queen rose from her throne, tall and commanding. "Let them whisper," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. "Let them doubt, for in the end, survival speaks louder than tradition. And this human has proven his loyalty with blood." The counselors bowed reluctantly, but their faces were masks of rage. Daniel knew they would not stop. Their pride had been wounded, and pride was more dangerous than steel. That night, Daniel returned to his chamber. He sat on the edge of the strange shifting bed. His mind heavy, he had not asked for any of this. Yet he was now tangled in alien politics. He thought of Earth, of the simple life he had left behind. And for the first time he wondered if he would ever see it again. but his thoughts were cut short by a faint sound outside his door. A scrape of metal, a whisper too low to catch. Daniel tensed. He moved to the side just as the door slid open. A figure in dark armor rushed in, blade gleaming under the dim light. Instinct screamed through him. Daniel grabbed the nearest object, a metal tray, and blocked the first strike. Sparks flew. The assassin hissed in the alien tongue, lunging again. Daniel stumbled, his heart pounding. He was no soldier, but his fear kept him alive. He dodged, kicked, and struggled. Then the door burst open again. The Queen's guards stormed in, blades flashing. They cut down the intruder in seconds. The assassin fell, green blood pooling across the silver floor. Daniel's chest heaved, his hands trembling. He stared at the lifeless figure, realizing the truth. They had come for him. Not for the Queen. The guards dragged the body away, leaving Daniel shaken. Moments later, the Queen herself entered. Her eyes glowed fiercely as they swept over him. She moved closer, her tail curling protectively around his legs. They dared to strike at you, she said, her voice low with anger. They dare because of me. Daniel swallowed hard. They hate me, don't they? He whispered. Your council, your people, they see me as a threat. The Queen did not deny it. Instead, she lowered her head slightly. Yes, they fear what they do not understand. They fear you because you are mine. The words sent a chill down Daniel's spine. Yours? He asked, confused. Her eyes softened, but her tone remained firm. You saved me twice, human, once by accident and now by fate. You are bound to me, whether they like it or not. Daniel's pulse raced. He wanted to argue, to tell her he was not bound to anyone. But the memory of the blade flashing toward him silenced his protest. Whoever had sent that assassin would not stop. His life was tied to hers now. Whether by choice or not, in the following days, tension filled the palace. The guards doubled their patrols. Council meetings turned colder. The Queen kept Daniel even closer. Her tail brushed against him often, not by accident, but as a shield. Every touch was a reminder to the court that he was under her protection. But protection came at a price. Daniel could no longer walk through the palace without fear. He slept lightly, waking at every sound. He ate cautiously, knowing poison was an easy weapon. The world that had once been strange but fascinating now felt dangerous, hostile, and ready to crush him at any moment. Yet, through it all, the Queen's gaze never left him. Her eyes followed him with an intensity that both unsettled and comforted him. She was not just a ruler defending her honor anymore. She was a living wall between him and death. And Daniel realized something terrifying. The more danger grew around him, the stronger the bond between him and the Queen became. He had entered her world by accident, but now he was the center of a storm that could either destroy them both or forge something unbreakable. The palace never felt safe after the attack. Every corridor seemed darker, every whisper sharper. Daniel could feel eyes on him wherever he went. Yet through the rising tension, one truth became clear. The Queen kept him closer than ever. Her throne room, once a place of distant majesty, became almost a prison for him. He stood near her side during councils. He ate within her circle, and he slept only a few chambers away from her quarters. The guards might glare at him, the council might despise him, but no one dared touch him while her luminous eyes were watching. One evening, the Queen summoned him privately. The chamber was smaller than the throne room, lit by soft blue fire that shimmered on the silver walls. The air smelled faintly of flowers. Daniel entered nervously, unsure why she had called him alone. She stood without her crown. Her long silver hair flowed freely. Her tail rested gently against the floor. For the first time, she did not look like a queen. She looked tired. Her eyes, though glowing, carried the weight of years. "You saved my tail," she said quietly, her voice no longer sharp with command but soft, almost fragile. Daniel swallowed, nodding slowly. "It was instinct," he said. "I didn't even think." The Queen stepped closer, her tail curling lightly around her own legs. "You do not understand, human. My tail is not just flesh. It is the living mark of my bloodline. It carries the memory of every queen before me. To harm it is to wound the throne itself." Her eyes fixed on him. "You shielded it with your own body. Do you see why that matters?" Daniel's chest tightened. He had known it was important, but not like this. He lowered his gaze. "I didn't do it for your throne," he whispered. "I did it because you were in danger." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. "That is why it matters even more," she said. The silence stretched between them. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, but then the queen's tail moved, brushing lightly against his arm. The touch startled him, but it carried no anger. Instead, it felt protective. "You are different from my people," she said softly. "You act without calculation. You protect without asking for reward. That is why I trust you more than the ones who bow to me." Daniel blinked, stunned. Trust. The word sank deep into him. No one had ever trusted him with such weight, not even back on Earth. He felt his throat tighten, words failing him. The queen studied his silence. "Do you wish to leave?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was calm, but her tail twitched with tension. Daniel hesitated. His mind screamed yes. He longed for freedom, for Earth, for the quiet life he once had. But when he looked into her glowing eyes, something held him. He could not lie. "I don't know," he admitted. His voice was barely above a whisper. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the queen turned away, moving toward the balcony. Stars glittered beyond the glass. "If you left," she said softly, "I would let you go, but I would not forget." Daniel's chest ached at her words. He wanted to believe he was just another worker, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. But her eyes told him otherwise. He was no longer a stranger to her. He was part of something larger, something he barely understood. In the days that followed, their bond grew quietly. The queen began to seek him out not only in public, but in private. She asked him questions about his childhood, about the oceans of Earth, about the way humans told stories. Daniel spoke awkwardly, but she listened with interest, sometimes even with wonder. One night, he told her about fireflies, tiny glowing insects that filled the air back home. She leaned closer, her glowing eyes bright with curiosity. "Living lights," she whispered. "Your world must be beautiful." Daniel smiled faintly, for the first time feeling less like a prisoner and more like a guest. But outside their growing closeness, the palace grew colder. The council's anger deepened. Some guards refused to look at him, and whispers of rebellion spread through the halls. Daniel felt the danger pressing closer, and yet, when he stood beside the queen, it seemed to fade. Her presence was like a shield, strong and unyielding. One morning, as they walked through the garden chambers, filled with glowing flowers, the queen spoke quietly. "They will come for me again," she said. "And they may come for you too. Will you stand with me when that time comes?" Daniel froze. His heart pounded. He had no training, no weapons. He was just a human technician. Yet when he looked at her, standing tall but vulnerable in her honesty, he heard himself whisper, "Yes." The queen's tail curled softly around his wrist. Her luminous eyes softened in a way he had never seen before. "Then you are no longer just a human in my palace," she said. "You are my protector." The words struck Daniel deeply. He felt fear, but also something stronger, a sense of belonging. For the first time since this nightmare began, he realized he did not want to run, not if it meant leaving her unguarded, and though he knew danger was closing in, he also knew one thing. His bond with the alien queen was no longer an accident. It was a choice asterisk. The bond between Daniel and the queen grew stronger each day, but so did the shadows around them. The council's whispers had turned into plotting, and the guards' glares had sharpened into open hostility. Daniel could feel the tension in the palace like a rope pulled too tight, ready to snap at any moment. The queen never spoke of fear, but Daniel noticed the way her tail curled tighter during meetings, the way her eyes lingered on doors before stepping through. She was a ruler surrounded by enemies, and he was caught at the center of her storm. One night, the palace trembled with a strange silence. Daniel woke to the sound of boots pounding the corridors. Shouts echoed in the alien tongue, sharp and urgent. He jumped to his feet just as the door to his chamber burst open. A loyal guard rushed in, armor dented. "Human, they move tonight," the guard hissed. "The council has betrayed her. They mean to end the queen." Daniel's blood ran cold. Without thinking, he grabbed the closest piece of metal from his room, a broken lamp base. His legs shook, but his heart knew one truth. He could not let her face this alone. The guard led him through hidden passages, the air thick with smoke and the distant clash of steel. They reached the queen's private chamber, and Daniel's chest tightened at the sight. The queen stood tall, crown tilted. Her tail coiled like a weapon. Around her lay 3 fallen guards, and more traitors pressed at the door. "Daniel," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "You should have fled." Daniel shook his head, gripping his makeshift weapon. "Tighter. Not without you," he answered. His voice cracked, but his eyes were steady. The queen's luminous eyes softened for only a second, then hardened again as the doors crashed open. Armed rebels stormed in, led by a counselor whose jeweled robes were stained with blood. "Your reign ends tonight," the traitor snarled. "No queen who bows to a human deserves the throne." Queen raised her chin, her voice steady as steel. "Then you will see how far loyalty carries me." The fight erupted in a storm of blades and shouts. Daniel ducked as a blade slashed past him. He swung the lamp base wildly, catching one rebel across the jaw. His heart thundered, fear clawing at him, but he refused to run. Every time a blade neared the queen's tail, he stepped in front of it. His arms ached, his body burned, but he stood firm. The queen fought like a storm-given form. Her tail lashed out with crushing force. Her claws tore through armor. She was majestic and terrifying, but she was not invincible. A blade slipped past her guard, striking her side. She staggered, her crown tilting. "Your Majesty!" Daniel cried. Without hesitation, he threw himself between her and the next strike. The blade slashed across his arm, hot pain ripping through him. But he did not move aside. He pushed back with all his strength, forcing the rebel down. The counselor sneered. "Pathetic human, do you think you can protect her? You will die, and your death will mean nothing." Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to stand tall. "Maybe my death means nothing to you," he growled, "but it means everything to me." The queen's eyes blazed as she heard his words. Her tail whipped forward with deadly speed, striking the counselor across the chest and sending him crashing to the ground. Silence fell as the remaining rebels froze, their leader defeated, their courage broken. The loyal guards stormed in moments later, cutting down the rest or forcing them to flee. The chamber grew quiet except for Daniel's harsh breathing and the dripping of blood on the silver floor. The queen moved to him, her tail curling protectively around his waist, her luminous eyes locked on his. "Foolish human," she whispered, but her voice trembled. "You bleed for me again, willingly this time." Daniel swayed on his feet, his arm burning, his chest heaving. "I told you," he murmured. "I wasn't going to leave you. Not now, not ever." The queen's hand lifted to his cheek, her claws cold, but her touch gentle. For the first time in her reign, she showed vulnerability before another. Her voice was soft, almost breaking. "Then you are more than protector. You are my shield." Daniel's heart twisted. His legs threatened to give out, but he stood taller. His blood stained the floor, but his resolve burned brighter than the fires of rebellion. Around them, the loyal guards bowed deeply, some in awe, others in silent acceptance. Word would spread quickly. The human who shielded the queen once by accident had now chosen to shield her by will. And as the night's betrayal faded into the silence of dawn, Daniel realized he had crossed a line he could never return from. He was no longer just caught in her world. He had chosen it. He had chosen her. The palace lay heavy in silence after the night of betrayal. Smoke lingered in the halls, the scent of blood still clinging to the silver walls. Daniel's arm was wrapped hastily in alien cloth, his body weak but his spirit unwilling to bend. He walked beside the queen as dawn's pale light filtered through the great windows. Every step reminded him of the danger that had passed, and the danger still to come. The rebellion had been crushed, but the price was clear. The court was divided, the guards suspicious, and the people restless. Daniel knew that his presence was no longer just unusual. It was a spark that could ignite either hope or ruin. The queen stood tall before her throne, her crown gleaming faintly though her side still bled beneath her robes. Loyal guards knelt before her, their voices chanting her title, yet behind the chants Daniel could feel their unease. The whispers would not fade so easily. The council entered, their jeweled robes brushing against the floor. Their faces were masks of obedience, but their eyes revealed bitterness. One counselor stepped forward, his voice steady but sharp. "Your Majesty, the people demand clarity. They cannot accept this human at your side. If you keep him, you risk tearing the empire apart." The queen's luminous eyes fixed on him, her tail coiled slowly like a serpent preparing to strike. "And if I cast him aside?" she asked coldly. The counselor's lips curled. "Then order will return. The throne will be pure again. Your people will forget this shame." Daniel's heart sank. He had expected this moment. He knew the choice weighed heavy, not only on the queen, but on the empire itself. His instincts screamed at him to speak, to tell her to let him go. But his chest ached at the thought of leaving her. The queen turned her gaze to him. For a moment, time froze. Her eyes softened. Her tail brushed gently against his leg. "What do you want, human?" she asked. Her voice carried not as a queen's command, but as a woman's question. Daniel swallowed hard. His throat burned with unspoken words. "I don't belong here," he whispered. "I never did. But I can't walk away either, not while you still need me." The queen's eyes glowed brighter, her chest rising with a deep breath. She turned back to the council, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Then hear my choice," she declared. "This human is not an intruder. He is not a stain. He is my protector, my shield, and my chosen companion." Gasps erupted across the hall. Some counselors stumbled back, their faces pale with disbelief. The guards stiffened, unsure whether to bow or protest. The counselor who had spoken earlier shouted, "Blasphemy! You bind the throne to an outsider. You break the sacred order." The queen's tail lashed the floor with a thunderous crack, silencing him. Her eyes blazed like fire. "The sacred order means nothing if it cannot protect life. He has shielded me not once, but twice, while others failed. If loyalty and courage are shameful, then let me be shamed. But I will not abandon him." Her words rang across the hall, carrying into the corridors. Servants paused, guards whispered, and the echo of her declaration spread like wildfire. For the first time, Daniel realized this was no longer about him alone. It was about a queen, defying centuries of tradition to forge something new. Daniel's chest tightened, his hands shook. He had not asked for this, but now it was his reality. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite the storm around him. "I am no warrior, I am no noble, but I will stand by her as long as I breathe. If that means facing your hatred, then so be it." The queen's luminous eyes softened at his words. Her tail curled around his waist, a silent gesture of claim and protection. "Then let the empire know," she said firmly. "This human is mine." The chamber erupted. Some guards fell to one knee, bowing in acceptance. Others clenched their fists in anger. The council split, half shouting in protest, half stunned into silence. But the queen did not waver. Her gaze held only Daniel, as if the rest of the world no longer mattered. Later that night, when the throne room had emptied and the chaos had calmed, Daniel sat near the balcony. His arm ached, his body weak, but his mind swirled with everything that had happened. The stars stretched endlessly outside the glass, reminding him of the small world he had once known. The queen stepped beside him, silent for a moment as her eyes gazed into the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. Her voice lacked the weight of command. It carried only the quiet vulnerability of someone who needed an answer. Daniel turned his head, meeting her gaze. His chest tightened, but his words came easily. "No," he whispered. "Not as long as I'm beside you." Her tail brushed against him, curling gently. Her eyes softened, glowing like twin suns in the night. For the first time she smiled, not as a queen, not as a ruler, but as someone who had found trust where she least expected it. And Daniel knew in that moment that his life was no longer his own. He was tied to her throne, to her world. His choice had been made. He had shielded her tail once by accident, but now he shielded her heart by choice. Asterisk.